Put things on your phone.
It becomes my memo pad.
No, I know, but let me show you what I do.
I mean, I could bring my laptop.
I'm 80 now, you know.
Are you really 80?
Yeah.
I feel like 80.
People have been talking about your bio.
Evie told me she pulled me up.
She did?
To say it was great.
Wait, they didn't?
No, oh no, they and her.
Oh, I figured.
Yeah, I had to do that interview kicking and screaming. I really didn't want to do it.
It's good. I think it's good though.
Well, why do you think it's good? Because to me, so woman to woman, to me, it was a vulnerability. It was putting in
Put you on speaker.
that could be used against you.
Okay, you're on speaker.
Right? That's fine. So I said, no.
Did you tell her?
Oh, it was a guy.
All right, never mind.
No, everybody has to move over a little bit. I know there's no room. Good.
Well,
Yeah.
come sit.
You're gonna sit,
All right.
there.
You can sit next to me.
Thank you.
For a little lady, you make a lot of waves. I know she does.
Now here's the other alternative. The person that doesn't need any notes
I
at all.
I
That
made
just-
some, but I can't find them. It's okay.
But you don't need any
I
notes.
don't usually have notes.
Well, at least you have some notes.
You brought notes.
I've been doing this.
I know you have.
Oh, really?
So,
Well, that's funny because I've been nervous about it for a week, you know, and I was a teacher for years. I get nervous
they
every
make
time.
a big deal out of it.
We were kidding, but she has
We'll
hers
have
on
to
her
announce
phone.
it.
And this is me. Every topic I have to write out.
Does somebody have a pen?
I just have broad brush strokes that I hope to fill
Do
in.
you have another pen? Oh, she has a pen.
Thank
There
you.
you
All right. Am I sitting already?
go. No. Do you need something to write on?
Yeah. I might get some ideas.
Let me sit like a proper person.
Okay. I need a piece of paper.
Oh, here.
Could I have a bag of piece of paper?
Yeah, here. Oops, yikes! I lost my notes.
You only lost two.
Evie, how much? I better put this
Yeah, I
in
thought they
order.
had like 100 people here.
All right, here. Sorry.
And this is supposed to be recorded?
Here's two.
Yeah, I think so.
Here's two.
I only need one. She gave me two. No, I don't know this person. I know
Hi, I'm Robert.
Robert, nice to
Nice
meet
to meet
you,
you.
Robert.
How you doing?
I'm all right.
These lights are so bright.
The what?
The lights.
You're on TV.
I know.
What, you're probably gonna say, but what union are you in?
I'm local 371 in DC.
Do I need
57.
to use this to speak?
I was 768.
Ah, which one is that?
Health
So what are you
service.
talking about?
So what I work in the health department. Who's the president? The 371 now.
Anthony Wells.
Well, he's been around.
Yeah. I mean, he's been the president practically since I've been working
Right,
for
I know,
the
it's
city.
crazy. I know some, yeah, they last a long time.
I'm gonna silence and start. I'm gonna silence them and start. Okay, hello everybody, welcome. We're gonna start. We're a couple of minutes late, but we'll catch up. We'll talk real fast. I'm John Highland. I'm a retiree from LaGuardia Community College and active with the PSC. Welcome. We're so glad you're here. Such a good group. Good to see old friends. And I think it's going to be a very good afternoon. First of all, I want to thank the people who have made this possible. Many people. We thank the People's Forum for hosting us. We thank David for making all these electronic things work. And Boyda also, one of us. And so we welcome the speakers especially. We're really looking forward to hearing from you. We know we've got a dynamite group, and I think we're going to learn a lot, and also hope to have some good conversation with us after the speakers go. The agenda or the time frame is the speakers will speak 12 minutes apiece. 5 of us, that's 60 minutes. And after that, the floor will be open for comments, questions, to which the panelists may respond if they so choose, or if the people ask you something. So we'll do that for approximately another 45, 50 minutes. We'll wrap it up, and then we'll go home and have a good time at home. Mainly because the forum has other events coming up after us, so if we don't go willingly, they'll call it 9/11 or something like that. So in any case, welcome, thank you. I just want to say a few short words. I hope if I begin to wander, somebody smack me. Just to give a little focus to the day. We're here to address a major issue, to understand the healthcare benefits of the New York City public sector workers, retired and active in service. There have been negotiations going on for years without our knowledge. And that has to stop. That has to change. So, and we're not talking chump change here. We're talking over 300,000 active workers. I don't have the exact numbers, but I'm sure it's over that. And over 250,000 retirees, plus spouses, partners, dependents. We're talking about serious effects on large numbers of people's lives. So we want to understand this better. I think a lot of us may not have ever heard of the Municipal Labor Committee before. I've met a lot of people who haven't. Or they heard it and they knew there was some operation going on somewhere, but not much understanding. So we're here to understand and to change. We want to make it right and not have people messed over. So as labor union activists, we are especially focused on the Municipal Labor Committee. They're the ones who've been negotiating without our knowledge and participation. And again, with the Office of Labor Relations of the city, it's still going on. I'm not going to get into that. And so that's the background, right? The Medicare Advantage struggle, the role of the Municipal Labor Committee, and what we can do about it. So with anything else, I'll turn the mic over to Mike.
Good job.
Thank you. I'm going to start, it'll take me about 3 minutes, even less perhaps, to pose 8 questions about the MLC, which hopefully will get our minds working, our juices flowing. Number 1, why are the Municipal Labor Committee's negotiations with the city confidential? 2, why are the MLC's inner workings opaque even to the majority of its own members, including its steering committee? 3, more consequentially, why do union members not have the right to vote on what the MLC has negotiated? ostensibly on their behalf. 4, why did the MLC sign off on the 2014 and 2018 concessionary agreements with the city that require $600 million of healthcare savings should be in quotes, every year continuing indefinitely, in exchange for wage increases that barely reach the rate of inflation? 5, why does the MLC prefer to make concessions on health coverage for union members rather than support the New York Health Act, which would remove health care from the bargaining table and make it a right for all residents of New York State? 6, why does the MLC support the privatization of Medicare, that is, the switch to Medicare Advantage? 7, why does the MLC have no perspective of mobilizing labor's ranks and bringing the collective power of public sector workers to bear on its negotiations with the city? Finally, why has the MLC ceded the basic defensive function of unions to act as a bulwark against the offensives of management? Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to start off the speakers with Ray Markey. Some folks here know Ray, know of him. Ray was the president of the New York Public Library Guild, Local 1930, part of DC 37. He was also a vice president of DC 37. He was a participant in the Municipal Labor Committee. He is now a member of Labor for Traditional Medicare, which did a wonderful job. They organized a petition that was started, was published by independent, 4 pages of tiny, tiny signatures. I mean, if you don't know that people are upset about this stuff, that's a very good explanation. So thank you, Ray, for that. And I turn it over to you. Take it away, Ray Markey.
Unmute.
He's muted.
You're muted, Ray.
You have to tell him he's muted.
Ray, you need to unmute so we can hear you.
Yeah, he did.
Okay, can you hear me? Yes. All right. So for those of you who don't know or haven't heard about the Municipal Labor Committee, and I don't think there's probably very many people in this forum who haven't, but for those who haven't, I didn't know about it either 49 years ago. And never in my wildest imaginations did I ever expect to get a telephone call from John and Mike asking me to speak about the Municipal Labor Committee. 49 years ago is a long way. So I tried to jog my memory. I'm not in New York City right now. So I didn't have any notes or anything else like that. So it's mostly memory and going on Google and trying to look up what I could find out. So this was my experience. I was a member of the executive board of Local 1930 in 1975. I was just elected to be the representative from the local to the Municipal Labor Committee. So my first meeting, I would go to the Municipal Labor Committee. Harry Van Arsdale is the president of the Municipal Labor Committee. He was the president of the Central Labor Council. He was also the president of the IBEW. The Central Labor Council, for all practical purposes at that time, and maybe still is, for all I know, a creature of the building trades in New York City. So at that first meeting, it turns out that Mayor Beam had just announced that he was going to lay off 60,000 municipal workers. Harry Van Arsdale opens up the meeting with his little presentation, and he talks about what the mayor's doing, and essentially he says, well, what am I supposed to do? What are we supposed to do? The mayor says there's no money. So, you know, what's going to happen is going to happen. Well, the place went wild. And like I said, it was my first meeting, so it was pretty exciting for me, you know, among other things. So all these people got up and started yelling and giving presentations, including myself. Most of the speakers were were representatives from the various municipal unions. And every one of them was facing a potential layoffs, demotions, you name it. And so the meeting went on and on and on and on. And finally, Harry Van Arsdale said, well, listen, I hear you. I'm going to set up a committee of the Central Labor Council dealing with all these problems. And that was the last we heard of Harry Van Arsdale, because a few days later, I found out that something called the Municipal Labor Committee existed. And Victor Gottbaum, the executive director of District Council 37, was the chair. And the two other major players in Municipal Labor Council at that time was Albert Schenker, the president of the United Federation of Teachers, and Barry Feinstein, the president of Local 237 of the president of Local 237 of the Teamsters. What then happened was the governor had set up something called Municipal Assistance Corporation. The city had set up something called the Municipal Emergency Financial Control Board. And they were the ones who were going to negotiate with the unions. Now, what were they demanding? They were demanding a wage freeze and wage deferrals, layoffs in the tens of thousands, subway fare hikes up to 40%, ending free tuition at CUNY, abolishing rent control, suspending housing programs, closing some city hospitals, closing libraries, etc. In fact, things were so bad that Percy Sutton, at that time, he was thinking about running for mayor. He put a full-page ad in the Amsterdam News saying that municipal workers should be paid in script. That's what was going on. We should be paid in script. It's unbelievable. The municipal unions at this time were at the height of their power. Victor Gottbaum had taken over District Council 37. I think it was like 1964. He had 38,000 members. By 1975, District Council 37 had 110,000 members. 110,000 members. The UFT's numbers were about the same. Feinstein's numbers were probably around 20,000. Now, what happened as a result of all of this? What was the union's reactions? Well, 10,000 sanitation workers pulled a job action. Highway workers from District Council 37 shut down one of the highways. 500 police officers blocked the Brooklyn Bridge. 10,000 DC 37 workers demonstrated down at the Citibank, which was called the First National City Bank. In fact, things were so bad and it horrified all the bankers and everything. Gottbaum said the Citibank was public enemy number one. Public enemy number one. The 30,000 teachers marched across the Brooklyn Bridge coming from the Board of Education's headquarters in Brooklyn over to City Hall. Then in the New York Public Library, the staff actually, the public and the staff sat in libraries and slept in the library so that they wouldn't be shut down. The UFT actually called a strike in September of 1975, and Schenker said that Schenker opposed the strike. He said, what was the mayor supposed to do? There's no money. You know, you can't get water from a rock. The whole point of this, the whole point from my perspective is 49 years later, that nothing much has changed with the Municipal Labor Committee. Now you got to understand, the Municipal Labor Committee doesn't have the bargaining certificate. So they were negotiating all of this with the financiers, but the individual labor leaders had to go back to their own unions, and their own unions had to vote on this. The Municipal Labor Committee, for all practical purposes, acted as a cover for the individual unions. They could say, the union leaders could say, the Gottbaum and Schenkers of the world could say, well, you know, we got together, we talked about this, you know, we all basically agreed that the city was in such a rough shape that we had to make givebacks. And the givebacks were different for each union. You know, so for instance, one of the things that District Council 37 originally gave up was heat time. You know, they had a policy that if you worked in a place during the summer, you would get like 2 hours off a day, 2 hours early. Well, that wouldn't apply to the UFT because the UFT wasn't working in the summer. Anyway, they did that, but that was just a minor thing. We know what happened. Tens of thousands. So at the end of the day, despite all this phenomenal ferment on the part of the unions and a part of the rank and file, and I'm only giving you a slight flavor of it. There were meetings going on in in every single union in the city. And they weren't calm meetings. People were afraid of getting laid off. It was really it was a terrible time, but it was also a time of hope, because many of us had come out of the anti-war movement, then the women's movement, then the Black civil rights movement, then people had been in the Peace Corps and everything else like that. We felt empowered. We felt that we could actually change things. So at the end of the day, what took place was that Gottbaum, Shanker, and Feinstein decided that they had more to fear from the city of New York and the financiers than they had from their own membership. And that's because of the undemocratic nature of many of these unions. It was an absolutely atrocious attack. Nothing much has changed in 50 years, in my opinion. Nothing much has changed in 50 years. The only difference is the severity of what's going on. Right now, we see they're picking on retirees. Yeah, well, retirees in DC 37 can't vote. Easy pickings, right? There's 27,000 members of the DC 37 Retirees Association. Yeah, they can't vote. Can you imagine what would happen in all these meetings, in all these delegate assembly and union meetings, if the retirees were there? If we were there and they got up in front and said, okay, we're going to give a 3% salary increase to everybody, you know, but the money's coming out of the pockets of retirees. It would be entirely different meetings than you're having right now. In fact, what I wanted to do, I'll give you an example of how bad it was for my local. In the library that I worked in, I was in charge of a library in the South Bronx, West Farms. At that time, like I say, the city laid off a third of the members of the branch libraries. That's quite a number. 1 out of every 3 people you're working with gets laid off. Others got demoted. I got demoted. My wife got demoted. Terrible. One of the women who was working, who was a clerk in the library, she got, to give you an example, she got laid off. The daycare center where she was sending her child was shut down, and she was going to City University at night. And within a year, there was tuition charged to City University. There were all sorts of other things that came out of this. One of the things besides what took place.
Ray, I'm going to interrupt just for a second to give you a heads up. You have about 3 more minutes if you could wrap it up. I know it's impossible. Okay,
well, I'm just about finished. Thank you, John. So I just want to I'll end with a quote from Victor Gottbaum. And it sort of applies to today. And this was when Victor died, Steve Greenhouse, the labor writer for the New York Times, wrote an obituary in the New York Times. And he quoted Gottbaum. Talking about the 1975 events, he said, we could stop the collection of millions of dollars a day, turn off the water supply, pull out the ambulance drivers, leave Coney Island without lifeguards. We could rape the city. To me, this would be disgraceful for any union to do. I never think there is a validity in destroying the city. I really believe that a union has a responsibility to the public, but obviously not to the members. He didn't add that. I just added that. And what Gottbaum and Shanker and Feinstein and the rest of these people did was an everlasting disgrace to the trade union movement. It had detrimental effects that are still going on right now. It not only had effects in New York City, it spread all across the country, not just in municipal unions, but also in private unions. So I would like to say that my 2 cents about the Municipal Labor Committee is they haven't changed in 49 years since I've been aware of them. And what they are is they are a cover for givebacks. And also mayor of the Financial Committee has to do is say, we don't have any money, and they say, how much do you want? Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Okay, our second speaker is the one and only Julie Schwartzberg. And let me just give a brief introduction here. I could go on for a long time, but I don't want to, and Julie doesn't want to. And I excuse my shuffling of papers. Voila. Okay. Julie has been an activist for social justice for over 50 years. So we're really getting the big numbers here. In any case, Julie retired from the New York City Department of Health, was vice president of Local 768, Health Services Employees DC 37 AFSCME, also chair of DC 37's Lesbian and Gay Issues Committee. Julie is a founder of Cross Union Retirees Organizing Committee, also known as CROC, fighting New York City's attempt to privatize municipal retiree health insurance, and is now working to achieve health care for all as a member of the PNHP New York Metro Board of Directors. Julie worked in public health for over 25 years as a field worker and staff trainer in TB and HIV programs, and a trainer in hospital video interpretation. Also a public school teacher and instructor at Teachers College, Columbia. Take it away, Julie.
My 12 minutes are up, right? I thought that was my 12 minutes, but I don't know. But first of all, thank you guys so much for doing this. This is really fantastic, and I am honored to be with these people up here. Just let me say that a few of us found out, you probably all know this, so I'll do the history really quick, that we were being thrown into this Medicare Disadvantage plan, and there were responses all over the city. We have one who has done terrific work and done lawsuits and a whole lot of other stuff. And we in the Cross Union Retirees Committee, we're called the Action Faction. And so we took to the streets and to the elected officials and was screaming and yelling, and we've been doing that for 3 years. So what I wanted to do, probably because I'm an old teacher, is to show you a little history video of what we have done for those of you who haven't seen it.
Been to
some of the superstars are right here in this room, especially the ones with the screws in their heads, so I just want you to know that. As you can see, just real quick, we tried to take advantage of every holiday, every weekend, every event to get out there and yell and scream. And we had a lot of elected officials on our side, but unfortunately, we did not have a lot of elected officials on our side. So that's been a fight going on, and it's still going on with the many groups that are doing this fight. One of the things that happened very recently, I would say at least a year ago, is that we started finding out that every state and city in this country, the same thing was happening. And we reached out to people who are working with us now in Washington State, Delaware, Tennessee, California, and a bunch of others fighting the same fight. And an interesting point is that the places that have won, like Washington State, the unions are on their side. Very, very interesting. So we've been doing a lot of work nationally, and one of the things actually we just did yesterday is we had a press conference with a letter that was signed by 20 retiree organizations all over the country. We tried to deliver it to CMS, Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services at 26 Federal Plaza, and guess what? They wouldn't let us in. Surprise, surprise. But we don't give up, and we keep fighting, and we are so impressed about, and I have some copies of the letters if people want to see it, but the retiree organizations all over the country signed on, some of the states and cities that I already mentioned. And so we feel so strongly that this is a national issue, and we're going to keep fighting to make those changes. So one more thing on that is that there's that letter, we said, let's show them that the retirees are the ones who are mad about this. Now there's another letter, which is very similar, that anybody can sign. I think we put the flyers on everybody's seat. Just real quick, that the message is, and this was some of the National Alliance people who created this, the fraud of the major insurance companies in this country, 8 out of 10 of them have been, the major ones have been charged with inflating prices and overcharging and all of that. And interesting, 4 out of 5 of the biggest ones have actually, the feds have actually charged them with, court cases. And what's happened with that? I think one of them had to pay, a few bucks. They're overcharging by $140 billion a year. So the theory here is, on a national level, is what we want to do right now, and we want Medicare for all, but we want to level the playing field and say, take that money and move it over and make Medicare whole. Why? There's another interesting long history about why there is a Medigap plan, which I won't talk about, but people should look into it because it has to do with racism and a whole lot of other things. And then make it whole. Let's get optical. Let's get dental. Let's get all the benefits that we should have, and stop screwing mainly poor and people of color who can't afford the Medigap plans. So everybody can have what they want and what they need. So that's our current campaign right now. How am I doing? Okay. So what I'm going to ask, one thing is, these letters were handed out, and there's some on the back. Please sign, bring to your organization, and have organizations send, and this is going to go to the president as well. I need to say real quick, John told me I can have a second. We've been working in coalition, both nationally and with other groups in the city of New York. The Poor People's Campaign, Make the Road, other there are 1 million people in this country, in this state, that don't have health insurance. There are 740,000 people who have insurance, who are in medical debt being charged. So we believe this has to change. And the New York Health Act is a work in progress. A lot of us know that it needs to be fixed. It needs to be fixed for retirees, especially out-of-state retirees, and a whole lot of other stuff that I won't go into. If you want more information, we have flyers. But I just wanted to say that working in coalition and having health care for everyone is what we stand for.
Do you have time to show my 3-minute video, my other 3-minute video, or no? I think if we have time later, maybe.
Okay. We have another video of the coalition work and the personal stories that we have people say, but if we have time and people want to dance, we'll play it later.
Thank you, Julie. Okay. That's right. Let's hear it for Julie. Our third speaker is Marianne Pizzitola. And Marianne is retired FDNY EMS. She founded the FDNY EMS Retirees Association, originally to protect and defend EMS retirees after 9/11. Who were not getting health care for new illnesses believed to be related to the toxic exposure from 9/11. She was involved in all kinds of legal activity and organizing activity to make the survivors whole. And in 2021, she reactivated the retirees again, this time to prevent their former unions and city from selling off their hard-earned benefits and forcing them into a privatized form of Medicare Advantage plan. So since then, she's been a terrific organizer. She's put together a terrific organization, YouTube presentations, legal suits, winning at least 3 of them, to my knowledge. You may correct me and increase that number. And has, through that legal work, has stopped the plan of the city with the complicity of the MLC from going forward. So we welcome Marianne, and we thank her for all her work, and we look forward to continuing to work closely together. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Marianne Pizzitola from the New York City Organization of Public Service Retirees. Ray had made a quote from Victor Gottbaum, and I guess I'll open with one. And I really wish we had more union leaders like that today, because one of Victor's statements was he knew that Herb Haber from Labor Relations, during their years of collective bargaining together, he said Herb always knew that if anyone had hurt any one of Victor's members, that he would rip their hearts out. And yet we don't have labor leaders like that today, unfortunately. And I wish we did. And I think part of that is our job to circle back right up. The Municipal Labor Committee has had this unfettered access to negotiating things citywide for all of the city's unions. And there's over 100 different unions in the city, and some of them, they're dues-paying members that belong to the Municipal Labor Committee. They can choose to leave the committee, and it is a struggle to do that. But whatever decisions the committee makes is still affected on those locals that are no longer in the MLC. The MLC was created in 1966 as a way to stop unions from being pit against each other. It was meant to be one big union to leverage the power of labor against management. And that's how it kind of used to run, but it doesn't run that way anymore. Unfortunately, over the last couple of decades, with the use of the weighted voting structure of the MLC, every union has 1 vote for every 250 members. The largest unions control the votes. With that, if the largest unions, which is DC 37 and AFSCME, which both have roughly about 120-ish thousand, 119,000 people each, cast those ballots, they need a 2/3 vote to pass a motion, and it doesn't matter if most of the other unions behind them want the opposite, whatever those large unions want, that's what ended up happening. During the course of this fight, we spoke to many small unions who have small welfare funds, who would have been bankrupted basically by being forced into a Medicare Advantage plan. Part of those rules, if you remember in the early days of the Alliance, was that you have to use the prescription drug program that came with the Medicare Advantage plan. When you did that, in order to use that drug plan that came with the Medicare Advantage plan, you had to exhaust the union's welfare fund drug program first. Now, if you were a small little union, let's say with a max of $5,000 benefit in your drug plan, you would basically be bankrupting your welfare fund. So the small unions were very upset about this, and yet the MLC was just forging straight ahead. In some of the votes we started listening to, we heard that the PBA was constantly saying that they were not going to vote, or they did not acknowledge the body as the representative of the police union members. So they were not voting in any of the called votes. You would hear a lot of grumbling and mocking the representative from the PBA. But what we learned was, we found a document from 1988, I think it was. It was written, a legal affidavit in a litigation, and it was written by Arvid Anderson and James Hanley from OLR and OCB. And the letter basically said, entered into a case that was part of a PBA litigation against the city, that the MLC has no negotiating power. They have no bargaining certificate. They're not supposed to be negotiating for the city. Every union with its own collective bargaining certificate is supposed to be negotiating for its members. Healthcare is a mandatory subject of bargaining. So when you had asked, one of your questions is, how is that allowed to happen? When the MLC calls a vote, how is it that they were able to pass this without bringing it back to its members? I want to answer that question rather than go through what I had originally thought I would discuss, because that's important, and this affects every union member and retiree today. When the MLC calls a vote, the power that union holds, if every one of us is a union president in that meeting and we hold our own bargaining certificates, if you, as the MLC leadership, you're going to be Harry Nespoli today. If you called a vote and every one of us voted, we conveyed our bargaining power to you. That's why the PBA abstains from votes. And the leadership, we have emailed them over and over to tell them, you do not have to do this. What you should be doing is having these discussions in the MLC, bringing it back to your membership body, having that discussion with them, and of course that takes time. The MLC doesn't want time. The MLC leadership wants to call something and get it passed, and you'll hear the hurriedness on those calls with Harry Nespoli going, we gotta do this now. You don't have to do anything now. And if you go back to the mindset of Victor Gottbaum, he said, OLR knew that if anyone hurt any one of his members, he would rip their heart out. Where is that? Because in this situation, all of the unions, there were 5 unions that voted against this Medicare Advantage, going back to 21, and it still happened anyway. Some unions abstained, some unions didn't show up. But those unions felt helpless. I don't understand how a union feels helpless. Why did they not form a coalition and fight back? Why didn't they say, no, damn it, we're not doing this? Excuse me, darn it. Why are we doing this? Why are we diminishing a benefit for our retirees, right? We knew, at least our generation knew, that when we retired, we were no longer in a union, but we also knew that our leaders knew that the benefits that we earned during our employment carried through to us in our retirement, and that they needed to be protected because we were no longer union members within the union. We were not in the bargaining unit. So it had to be protected. Everyone will tell you that from that generation. This leadership, unfortunately, didn't respect that. And that's a problem that we have here in the city. The unions were okay with selling off retiree health care. And the other problem was the active workers didn't see it coming, and they didn't see what the loss was because they were told it's not a loss. And the union leaders that were saying, well, we disagree with this, but trust us, we'll have your back. We're working on it. We're gonna fix it. It's gonna be okay, but it wasn't. We shouldn't have needed to exist, our organization. Someone somewhere with a half a brain should have said, time out, this is not the right way to go. But how did we get here? We got here for a reason. The reason that we got here was because it was the right climate for the wrong reason. After all of these years, 9 years, no contracts, Bloomberg not signing any agreements with any of the labor organizations, left the unions desperate and traumatized, basically trauma bonded through attrition bargaining, that they had to negotiate away something. They didn't recognize their own value. Bloomberg would always tell them, Bob Lynn would tell them, you want a raise, you have to fund it. What are you giving back? Why are we attrition bargaining? We have a value. Now, everything else around us goes up in value. So if that's the case, then how come labor, our value diminishes, or we have to give up something in order to get something back? The rest of the world, your big unions, UAW, they're noticing that. They're making strides in taking away tiering, improving their healthcare. We shouldn't be giving ours back. So that gives you a little bit of an understanding on how that MLC runs. I mean, we can really just do a show solely on that in more than 12 minutes, but there's a lot more to get into, and I would love to continue this conversation because I think the active workers and the retirees need to understand what's coming for them.
Okay, now we have batting cleanup in the number 4 position. The slugger herself, Evie Rich. Evie is we were talking about how to do an introduction. I said, we don't have enough time, Evie. But Evie gave me some help. Evie has been a troublemaker for 70 years. She's been a member of, I think UFT for a while, CSA for a while, and then PSC now, okay? So she's strong union history. She's very active in this fight. I think a lot of people know Evie. If we had more time with this, we'd have many pictures of Evie speaking and so forth. And with all of that, Evie has been the New York City chair or executive director of the New York City chapter of the Americans for Democratic Action, ADA. So without further ado, we pass the mic to the one and only Evie Rich.
Hi there. In the premier city of the United States and perhaps the world, we retirees are fighting the fight of our lives. It's a fight that not only includes us as 65-year-old eligible Medicare recipients, it involves the children that we have and the children that those children are going to have. It is a fight for me, which began when I was 19 years old on the main line of Philadelphia, when I was told that I could not go into a restaurant with a Negro boy, that was the term, Negro, because they didn't serve Negroes in groups. We were 2 people, and we were a group. And I went to the college president then, and she stood by me to my surprise. That was the beginning. Not really, I had done a lot of things before, of my advocacy. Now, that advocacy spilled over into CORE, the Congress of Racial Equality. And after the sit-ins and the freedom rides, the major legacy, in my view, was passage of Medicare. in 1965, all right? The women's movement also grew out of that, as well as resistance to the war in Vietnam. We are here today to defend Medicare and to publicize and fight successfully efforts to take us out of Medicare, a traditional, publicly funded program, into a privatized, profit-making program where the insurance companies and the drug companies and the hospitals are now making billions of dollars. And so the question is, as retirees, what are we going to do? And I have right here on my side one of my partners in crime who is on the front line being very creative and imaginative about what we can do. And I have sitting in front of me an audience quite large of others, and we are going to address the issue, beginning with the MLC. What can we do? Now, let's begin. Let's begin. As retirees, we're a very complicated group. There are some of us who don't know about this fight at all. There are others of us who know about it and don't care. There are still others of us who say, well, so long as I have my Medicare, I don't care about the other people. And then there are us, all right? And we are the ones who are gonna make the difference, okay? And we're gonna begin with our unions. Now, when you walk out of here today, I want you to remember some things. The first thing I want you to remember is that most of the union movement today is corrupt. It is corrupt. The leaders have no vision. They have lost their way. They are not doing their job. They are using the MLC as a cover for a refusal to carry out their mandate. And one of the things you're going to walk away with is the feeling that that is going to change. And we're going to talk in the few minutes I have left. How many, John? 6? About how we're going to change it. 3. Okay. Now, there are organizations that already existed when this started, all right? Particularly in the UFT, all right? The largest union, maybe second largest union in the MLC after DC 37. There's retiree advocates. Here, put up your hand. Stand up, Gloria. All right. There's Educators for New York, okay? There is more. Movement of Retired Educators. Okay. They are out there. There's CROC, where Julie has made a pitch. There is the New York City Organization of Public Service Retirees and my partner in crime, Marianne. Okay. There are others smaller, and there is resistance inside these unions, some of which had the balls to vote against the vote to take us into the Medicare Advantage program to begin with. Now, what are we going to do? Let me tell you what we're going to do. We're going to grow a grassroots movement inside the unions, the 105 unions that are members of the Municipal Labor Committee. Let me tell you, they are underground. Mike over here is right. They're not transparent. They have money. They have a lot of money that they spend in their slush fund. I talked to a friend first in the independent budget office, and now he works for the city of New York. You have to have more than a PhD. I have a PhD and 3 other degrees to understand the secrecy of its operations. I'm talking about the stabilization fund that the MLC has, that it uses to do its dirty work. Okay, now, so what we're going to do is, first off, identify those unions with which we can work. So far, we know that they have voted, but we haven't approached them. We haven't begun to do the job. And my little union, the PSC, is also guilty. I'm going to tell you, as a member of the PSC, they ignore me. Now, it's not personal. They ignore everybody who isn't in their clique. And I'm not in their clique, okay? And rather than do something new, it, like most of the unions, has meetings and they talk. Action doesn't mean much. And if you go to the CROC rallies and the other rallies, you see very few PSC people there. We're the university people. We're supposed to be the finest educators, the smartest people. And we are not doing our job, because the job is to educate a city of workers, a city of working class and poor people who have not gotten what we deserve. This city is premier because we made it so. Remember that. Don't feel guilty, all right? Don't think that because you don't live in a fancy apartment and wear beautiful clothes that you haven't made it. You are our movement, okay? And so the first thing we're going to do is identify the unions who have stood up. And we're going to identify the leaders in those unions. I'm just giving 2 more minutes, John.
You got it.
Okay. And then we're going to go to the unions that are against us. DC 37 is a good example. But look, there are dissident groups within DC 37. There's the retirees organization where Lee Saunders had the nerve to, throw them out, expel them. He should be ashamed of himself. And I just want to say, I need a minute, he's a person of color, and I'm offended. I'm offended because as a person of color, I and other brown and black people like me suffer most in Medicare Advantage programs. And here he is suspending a union that's standing up for, that mostly has brown and black people to begin with. It's very disconcerting, all right? So we are going to launch a citywide education program designed to educate people who know nothing about this issue. In many, many ways, I'm going to conclude in a way by talking about Southeast Queens, because Adrienne Adams is the speaker. A black community taking her refusal to pass 165 that will make it reasonable for these black and brown home attendants to work 13 hours and get paid for 13 hours. It's disgraceful. Now, everybody had a quote. Let me tell you. Frederick Douglass said, if there is no struggle, there can be no progress. Power never concedes anything without a fight. It never has. Welcome to the fight.
Thank you, Evie. Thank you, Evie. Okay, our 5th speaker is also a good place in the batting order, is Robert Cuffy, who helped again with the introduction. A revolutionary socialist, has worked in the city's child welfare agency for 16 years. Robert is a member and elected delegate of SSEU 371, part of DC 37, a part of DC 30, is also a member of the rank and file formation DC 37 Progressives. Outside the workplace, Robert also organizes with the abolitionist and mutual aid projects, Washington Square Park Mutual Aid and Black Voices Matter, while also serving as a member of the editorial board of New Politics magazine. Take it away, Robert.
And thank you everyone for having me here. I'm trying to represent as best as I can the perspective of in-service members. And really and truly, I should just hand this back to you because we know nothing about the MLC. If anyone in my union wanted to know about it, we try to Google it. The results are not promising. Most of the results actually come from the city as they show the different contracts that they have with the MLC from 2014 and 2018 as they try to reinforce their $600 million in savings. I had the temerity to ask my union president, Anthony Wells, at last month's delegate assembly, what's going on with retiree healthcare and in-service healthcare? And he said, well, first thing, let's talk about the retiree chapter. They should have done their taxes, he said. And I don't think this is him, I don't think the takeover had to do anything with them donating money to other organizations. But if it was me, it just seems like you shouldn't use the money for that. So this is where we are. And asking, I said, is there a request for proposals out to change our current healthcare? And he said, of course. The city's always looking for savings. So at least he was honest in that sense. But this is the position we're at, where at least at the Administration for Children's Services, people who work as child protective specialists and supervisors are beaten down on such a daily basis just doing the work. We barely have time to raise our head above the water to participate in the union. And those of us who do participate in the union face a very opaque bureaucracy. I had the nerve again to ask one of the delegates at my workplace who serves on my union's executive boards, hey, are there any minutes from the executive board? And she spoke to the president and he's like, who's asking that question? And they're like, well, Robert Cuffy, you know who that? Of course I know who he is, but why would we share the minutes? So it's just this generalized opaque bureaucracy, at least in my local, that just, as you move up on the totem pole to DC 37, AFSCME, and the Municipal Labor Council, it becomes more and more opaque. And like Marianne said, the MLC came together to stop the city picking on smaller unions. Similarly, DC 37 came together to band together these disparate small locals across the city so we could have one united voice. But the opposite thing happens. And I say this as somebody from one of the biggest locals, Local 371, with a huge healthcare fund. I've been able to get my teeth fixed for free. My union somehow maintains an office about 10 blocks from here in Times Square at 1501 Broadway. We have our own dental office. Some of you who know me know I've been both injured and arrested at protests over the last few years. I got a lawyer for free. The business service model is on point. The struggle is with social justice unionism, right? At least pretending that we care about people outside the union. But more and more, when I speak to my coworkers, honestly, and I'm not making this up, they would ask me, well, what is really the difference between the union and management? And that's an incredible thing to have to answer, but it's these years and years of concessions and givebacks and being friends with management that has got us here. I distinctly remember Mr. Wells saying, when it came to Bloomberg, that's not somebody we can work with. When it came to de Blasio, he said, well, that's somebody we can work with. And now with Mayor Adams, if I'm to take the lead of Executive Director Henry Garrido, it's somebody you can even go on vacation with when he wins the mayoralty, because Henry Garrido went to the Dominican Republic with Mayor Adams to celebrate his election. And then we ask, as we negotiate contracts that leave us with below inflation wages, how do we get here? How hard do you fight against somebody you go on vacation with? That's the question. But in many ways, I think what's been inspiring has been the fight back from the retirees, and hopefully it's something in-service members can pick up on. I think, some of the most important voting blocks in the country, and tell me if I'm being ageist here, are union members and older people with a lot of time on their hands. And I think it's quite incredible that the city would like pick on this group of people, and we shouldn't be surprised at the response. Part of the issue is that the union leadership has the other body, us, the in-service members, in many ways muzzled in our response, right? Like in many ways, we don't know what's happening. When you ask questions, you're either gaslit or they have the temerity to tell you the truth. And they'll be like, well, what are you gonna do about it? And what we can do is the thing that the city the unions pretended to do during the last contract fight. You know, I tried to go to one of the contract rallies. The rally was slated to start, if I remember correctly, at 6 p.m. I think I worked flex time that day, so I got out at 6, jumped on the train and rushed down there, got there about like maybe 6:45, and they were taking the stage down already. Because it was a show rally, and unsurprisingly, the next day, they announced the agreement with the city. So it's like, we're in this situation. I'm trying not to be pessimistic, right? Where Mr. Wells tells me that Local 371 is a mighty, mighty union, but it doesn't feel that way. The workers don't feel like it's a mighty, mighty union. We had our delegate nomination process yesterday, and I was, happy and encouraged that some of the newer workers were able to come down and put themselves up to be delegates. But the reality is when we have on-site labor management issues, it's management canvassing the floor, asking, hey, what are the problems going on here? I don't want to go into this labor management meeting blind. Whereas our union organizers are not even giving us the initiative to do the same thing. So we go there and have management resolving issues we didn't even know existed. So we're left in that conundrum. And I would just say that, obviously this is a wider issue, right? That this capitalist system we're in has this ongoing economic crisis, and all across the world, even in places with the best of healthcare systems, like in Britain and Canada, they're trying to cut back and cut back and cut back. But they can only cut back by making things worse for us, right? Like I've asked Mr. Wells this several times, how can there be savings without a reduction in the quality of our healthcare? And the reality is there is no way. So somebody has to suffer, but as long as it's not them, it seems to be okay. And I think this is what the fight that CROC and others have been doing. It's been making life very uncomfortable to them. Mr. Wells was complaining in the meeting that those retiree people have been telling lies about me, right? So it's about creating more sleepless nights for the people with the power who keep our power muted because, okay, we have the Taylor law that says we have a no strike provision, but between doing nothing and striking, there's a lot you can do.
Yep.
Right? They can write petitions. They have a membership role of all the members who they can robocall, who they can message and motivate us to get onto the streets. They can bring us out to the city council hearings to confront the various city council members and the mayors. And I would say I see other people who've been part of DC 37, progressives out here, people who've organized as part of the movement of rank and file educators, and those of us who've gotten together to share strategies to say, we have to continue to encourage in-service people to see that the attack on retirees isn't an attack on us. I think I said 16 years I've been with the city. Given what Tier 6 looks like, God knows if people will ever retire. But if and when we get to that stage, we can just imagine how many more cuts they would have made to the healthcare program. And they tell us, get a city job, right? Because you get a guaranteed pension and guaranteed healthcare. And lo and behold, the city has a retention crisis. No one wants to stay at the jobs. Wait till they find out about the cuts to Medicare Advantage, about the introduction of Medicare Advantage, and what Tier 6 looks like. Like the cities, the unions, including mine, is currently in a fixed Tier 6 push. They want to fix Tier 6. But how did we get Tier 6 to begin with? Like, where was the opposition when it was introduced? If I remember correctly, these are the same unions that were endorsing Cuomo, who introduced Tier 6 and pushed it on us. So it's like a very disingenuous thing now that you have, I'm actually Tier 4, I'll be honest. People like me with Tier 4, right, where our contributions actually stop after a while, and people with Tier 6 who have to continue contributing for the life of their pension plan. And seeing this now, they say, okay, we have to fix Tier 6, but we can't fix these things if we continue to have an approach where, again, in Googling the Municipal Labor Council, the MLC said they want to move to a position where they're no longer confrontational with the city, but they're collaborative, and they're gonna work towards building something where they are able to, work with them as friends. The danger in this, I would say, is that they can wake a sleeping giant, which is the in-service workers and the retirees. At least for me in DC 37, that starts with opposing the takeover from AFSCME of the Retiree Association. And in many ways, just to my coworkers saying, hey, there's a retiree association. It no longer has democratic rights because they stood up and fought for themselves. If you want an example about how to fight back, we can look at ourselves, especially the people in the movement of rank and file educators, the way in which they nearly shut down the school system at the beginning of COVID to get remote work done. And we are in a moment where outside of municipal labor, there is a labor upsurge, right? We've seen the Red State Revolt regarding the teachers. Right here in New York City, we saw the Teamsters at Hunts Point go on strike and for the most part win. We've seen unionization efforts at Amazon. And there's just so much energy and initiative we should be drawing from despite the current conditions. So moving forward, if anyone here sees me and has practical ideas about how to move forward, I'm here for that conversation.
Thank you, Robert. A good sense of time. So, thanks to all the speakers. Ray, are you still with us? I don't know. But in any case, the speakers who were present, it was very thought-provoking and which we expected. And we're very happy to be doing this with you all. So we're going to go now to the second part of the meeting, which will be hearing from folks here in this room and also for from the people who are watching with the Zoom. If you could put your questions in the chat box, that would help us to...
I've got about a 60-40 chance at this point. The current is going that way, so we'll see.
Is that Sean? Can you mute?
Okay, so we got a little input, unexpected input. Questions in the chat box, and then we'll take hands from the people here. The time frame is, given we have so many people, I don't know if people here realize that there's, over, close to... Oh, yeah, okay. So there's another 100, 200 people on Zoom. So, okay, so let's, yes, okay, your name is?
My name is Carol Giordina. I'm active with the PSC at Queens College.
Okay, you're first. I just want to get a group of hands. Who else had their hand up? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, remember your number, please, because I didn't get a chance to write it all down. I can't hear you. Oh, okay, that's 6. Okay, so we'll start with
This is a question.
2 minutes. Okay, given the number of people. Okay.
Sure. I'm active with the PSC chapter, local chapter at Queens College. I'm a longtime PSC activist. This is a question for Marianne. Marianne, you are working to unite folks in different states at the federal level. It seems to me with the vulnerability of the Biden administration in the upcoming election, maybe it's time for all of us to march on Washington or something. I mean, do we have a federal strategy that takes advantage of Biden's election time vulnerability? And can we build one? Have you thought about that? I'm sure you have. Okay.
Thank you for your question. So we actually brought 100 retirees to Washington, D.C. last year with Be a Hero and Social Security Works. So we've been in that national movement, and we're actually continuing with this effort because this is a national problem. This not only affects just us here in New York City, but we are asked for assistance by retirees in other states who are fighting the same thing. And the reason that municipalities or employers or former unions can do this, force people into a Medicare Advantage plan, is because in 2000, there was a rule change that was implemented in 2003. And it was in the Medicare Modernization Act that allowed for, quote, seamless transition into Medicare Advantage plans. So we did talk about that. We learned about it in 2021 through MedicareAdvocacy.org. You can look it up. They have an issue brief in which their attorney does write about this situation and mentions our organization's fight. But yes, this is a federal problem. We've been trying. You'll see me sometimes messaging Secretary Becerra because he is the one that gives the waivers to the unions around the country and the former employers to allow them to auto-enroll their retirees into Medicare Advantage.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to try to go to one of the Zoom questions.
Okay, hi, this is on. Hi. So there are two questions, two quick questions, so maybe you can choose which one you want to focus on. From Dr. Robin Kerner, how can we find out what's happening with the RFPs for active healthcare? And then a question from Marianne from Jackie Norton. Can you discuss the various lawsuits your organization has going at this time?
Okay, those are two very good questions. One is, how do we find out what's going on in the proposals, in the negotiations of the active in-service members? Does anyone want to take a shot at that before we go to Marianne?
I can do them both.
Okay, you got them both. Good.
So the active worker under 65 retiree plan started out with an RFI, request for information, and moved last year to an RFP, request for proposal. They narrowed it down to two vendors, which is Aetna is one, for a citywide for the under 65 active worker plan. That would replace your GHI CBP plan. The other vendor that's a finalist is Emblem Health, but because they were looking to create a national plan, Emblem Health GHI CBP is regional, so they needed a national partner. They joined and formed an alliance with United Healthcare. The two vendors are those then. It is GHI, Emblem Health GHI CBP, United Healthcare, and the second vendor is Aetna. That was supposed to be, the one plan was supposed to be chosen by the MLC to replace the entire choice of plans. Active workers have 11 choices of plans today. That was supposed to replace all of them. Right now, that is still tied up. They can't come to a decision. The union supposedly wanted Emblem United. The city wanted Aetna. It turned into a fight. It also carved out the Empire component, and Empire got upset and decided to sue everybody. And you can go to the New York State Supreme Court, Manhattan. You will see Empire sued everybody, but it is a sealed docket and you can't see any documents. So right now, that is held up in litigation, and I can't tell you where it's going to go. About a month ago, the MLC had their leadership in the tripartite committee, which is also a secret committee, meet with the city of New York and the arbitrator, Martin Scheinman. We all know who he is. He makes like $7,000 to $7,500 a day. Make a request to see if they can, what they called split the baby, and I absolutely hate that term, but that they end up choosing both plans rather than one plan. With that, they could not come to a conclusion, and then the litigation was filed, and now everything is held up. And I don't know if they will eventually choose the plan, but if we hear from something, we'll let you know. The second question you had was about litigation. We have 3 cases right now. The Campion case was the first case that we brought against the city, which was the what does 12-126 means. We have won that in the Supreme Court. We've won in the First Department Court of Appeals, and we are now waiting for a court date in the New York State Court of Appeals, which is the highest court in the state. The second case is our copay case. We had it certified as a class action in the Manhattan Supreme Court before Justice Frank. When he certified it, the city appealed, so now we are waiting for oral arguments in the Court of Appeals First Department. The third case, that's the one that you just watched us in the First Department month ago, March 21st, I think. You guys met us down at the courthouse to hear oral arguments. We are still waiting for a decision on that. Now, when we say that there's 2 levels of appeals, that first case is in the final level, that's in the New York State Court of Appeals. The last 2 cases, the copay case and this one that you just heard, there's 1 more level of appeal. So if the city loses, I'm sure the mayor will just keep appealing, so.
Thank you. I think Sarah was next.
Oh, do I need? Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, I just want to make a couple comments as a long-term municipal retiree who's been fighting this for 3 years. There are so many levels to this fight. As Julie was saying, the retirees all over the country that we've been working with, they don't have to fight against their unions like we do in New York City. So we have an added complication here dealing with the MLC and our corrupt union misleaders. And the more I get into this fight, and we in CROC are getting more and more on the state and national level because this Medicare disadvantage privatization is going on all over the country. The more I get into this fight, the more I believe that coalition building is the way to go. And it's not only municipal retirees that are being screwed over. It's the home care attendants who are being forced to work 24 hours and being paid 13 hours. And the city council that says they're the most progressive in this city's history we can't do anything for you. Okay, so I'm saying coalition building. We are working hard with other groups, Poor People's Campaign. It's not only us that are being screwed over with our Medicare, it's thousands and thousands of people who are receiving Medicaid, who are being turned away. So we need to keep growing, expanding, because when we get right down to it, we need to fight the system. That's the fight.
Yes, there's some people have their hands up, but should I just read the questions?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll read a couple of them. Claudia Talarico, what unions are in those MLC meetings? Can contacting our union president help this cause? From Laura Genovesi, question, what can be done to get the city council to investigate, number 1, how the MLC has diminished municipal health care, and number 2, the health insurance stabilization fund? Marianne and many of us have requested both investigations multiple times without success. And then one more question from Mike Kluger. Do you think we're going to be able to get the equivalent of last year's intro 1099 reintroduced in the city council this year?
Okay.
What was the first one?
Is anybody here who can answer any of 1 or 2 or 3 of those?
There are more too.
I'm sure.
Give me one.
Yeah, take 1099.
So I can tell you that we are working on a reintroduction of the legislation, but if you're following what we're doing, we have state legislation that we are going to Albany on Monday for that has gained tremendous support in both the Senate and the Assembly. So for right now, our focus is on what's working. We are working on bringing back a bill in the city council soon. And I can't tell you more than that right now. What's next?
I think that one of the questions was, would it help to speak to one's union
Yes.
president? I would say yes.
Yes, I want to say that because after listening to this young man speak, and I feel his pain, right? One of the things I read this morning on my way here was an article in The Guardian on UAW, United Auto Workers, Sean Fain. And I had a statement I wanted to say about that, and I included it. So it says organized labor is making a comeback in the United States after decades of decline. Sean Fain thinks he knows why. Workers have realized that they have been getting screwed for decades and they are fed up. Read today's Guardian. This describes the apathy you're seeing in DC 37, and I feel you. Everyone who has a union, everyone who's active, everyone who's retired and has a union leader, you should all be calling them. The only way that they are going to be able to be held responsible is if you hold them accountable. Remember something, you are your union. You are your union. They are the leader. And if the leader is failing, and this is what the UAW did, if you follow the history of union history, because this is powerful, UAW went through 20 years of union leaders basically feathering their own nest, as a friend would say. They basically funded themselves at the expense of the membership, rather than working in a collective action to support the people that they were entrusted to care for and advocate for. So Mr. Wells should probably hear from the 20,000 of you that are in your union and not let him get away with the fact that he's not giving you a report of your treasury finances, of your minutes from every meeting. Did you know that the district council retirees leadership asked every union president to sign a non-disclosure as to not report what goes on in those e-board meetings? This is why they're able to keep it secret and keep you in the dark, because when they went to vote for health care, you should have said what's important to your president. So everyone should be calling their union presidents and asking them questions and asking them for proof, asking them for treasury reports, asking them for anything that you want, because that is your union.
Okay, was there a third part? No.
MLC, okay. The MLC right now has 102 unions in it. So, do you know what they are? We went to file a FOIL on that, and the city wouldn't tell us either. They actually gave me the names of 3 deceased union leaders from like 1960. But I could tell you who they are. I can put up a list on our website eventually, but I can tell you who they are, and the only way I know who they are is when I listen to their meetings. I can tell you when they do a roll call vote. That's it. But they won't tell you who they are, and they don't want their votes known because they don't want their members to know how they voted. It's called transparency, and the MLC is surely lacking this. What is that saying from the Washington Post, democracy dies in darkness? Yeah, it's dead in New York City. We need to take our unions back. That's all I gotta say.
Okay, we'll go back to in-person folks. We were here with Gloria, and then, right.
Okay, hi, my name is Gloria Bramman. I am a retiree in the United Federation of Teachers, and I'm going to ask a question of everyone in this room and everyone on Zoom, but I'm going to also answer the questions. And if we have time, I could take more questions. Okay, so I am a retiree in the UFT. I'm in a caucus called Retiree Advocate UFT. Retirees in the UFT are just a little different than some of the other retiree groups because we are part of the union. We get to vote in elections. It is a weighted vote, true, which is the right thing, but we do get to vote. We are a chapter, and we are having elections coming up in May. What a chapter election means is when I was a teacher, I worked in a school, once every 3 years, people would come into a room and vote for the chapter leader, which was me the last 9 years, and a delegate. We're big, we're over 70,000 people, so our vote will be coming in the mail, and it's done by the AAA Association. We are running a full slate against the UFT unity leaders of our union. Our union has sold us out, and I don't even have to talk about that because you've heard all about it here, I think enough. Our chapter has a chapter leader, who is, he does whatever he's told. Thank you very much. Whatever you want, I will do. If we win, and we actually feel like we have a chance, which is pretty amazing because Unity Caucus has controlled our union for like 60 years, starting with Albert Schenker. We now have Michael Mulgrew. Albert Schenker, except for his pro-war position, makes Michael Mulgrew look even worse. I mean, It's hard to believe. So what I am asking everybody here, because there are still many people who do not know this election is happening. Our biggest struggle is to get people to vote, to take that ballot and vote and not throw it in the garbage, because that's what a lot of people do. People live out of this city, people live all over the country. Please tell everyone you know, make a phone call, write a letter, tell them when they get their ballot in the mail, put the big X next to Retiree Advocate UFT. And then we'll see what we do when we win.
Okay, thank you. Back to the Zoom questions.
There are quite a few people
Sure.
waiting with their hands raised, so
I have no idea how to pick one from the other.
I think Carol Lang was first and Sean Petty.
Okay, go ahead, Carol Lang.
Hi,
Remember, 2 minutes, folks.
okay. I'm a member of the PSC, but I was also a member of DC 37 for many years. And for one, my experience with Victor Gottbaum is very different than Marianne's. He negotiated contracts with 000 and then had the nerve to say, I think that everything is looking up. And it was like pretty shocking after we got this really crappy contract. But the problem is nobody has mentioned, other than Robert in passing, that the problem is capitalism. You are all talking about things that we know about what happened and the cuts and the austerity, but the problem is capitalism. The problem is the system that we live in, and as long as the bureaucrats go along with the bosses, which they'll continue to do, who goes along with the Democratic Party, which they will continue to do, we'll keep getting cut back. And so we have to organize united fronts of workers all across the city and across the country about fighting against not only the bosses, but against our own bureaucrats, who are the people that are really stepping in the way of us, and everybody has said that, of us actually accomplishing anything. I think the most important thing, and I think my big difference with Marianne, is that I think we should fight for healthcare for all, not just for the seniors, because if we really want to build a movement that's a national movement, one that's a mass movement, which is the only way we're going to win anything anyway, is we have to include everybody. And as far as I'm concerned, everybody should have the right to have healthcare anyway in the city. And so let's broaden our appeal. Let's build a mass movement that's going to be around fighting for healthcare for everybody, which includes all the things we need. I just bought hearing aids, and Medicare doesn't pay for that. I spent $5,000 on hearing aids, and I'm retired. So, we need to demand that we tax the rich and that workers not pay for our own health care by allowing layoffs.
Okay, thank you, Carol. Any response to that statement? No. Okay, we're back to the in-person folks. I see Walter Daum. If I'm missing you, let me know again. Okay, I see you. One, you're there, and then you're next. Okay, two. I missed that. Okay, go ahead, Walter.
I want to go back to the question that Ray Markey quoted Victor Gottbaum as saying, where's the money to come from? When you think about that, this is the richest city in the world. Personal wealth, bank wealth, corporate headquarters, everything. Where's the money to come from? You can't put 2 and 2 together? And no one in the union movement raises that, although I hear there's some talk about that in Albany, but no one here has raised that. Where is the money to come from? We should be pointing to the fact that the rich can be taxed, the banks can be taxed, the corporations can be taxed, and we get a movement around things like that.
Okay, any comments back to that, or? I would just I know you do, but just hold 1 second, okay? Anyone else up here? Go ahead, Evie. Here's a mic. There we go. They've got it up there.
In the fiscal crisis, Victor Gottbaum had an associate whose name was Jack Beagle. Jack Beagle had a company on Wall Street. He had many employees. They analyzed the budget of New York City. They looked at the potential for raising money from wealthy people who lived here and the corporations which were functioning here. And Bigel's company gave this information to Gottbaum. Gottbaum, in his negotiations, along with Rohatyn, took the information and argued for a change in the way in which revenues in the city were collected. Now, my point is that the union leaders, in primarily those who control the MLC, meaning Garrido and Mulgrew and Floyd, Greg Floyd, and Henry, what's his last? Nespoli. They give no evidence of any effort to understand truly the city's finances and how they operate. People continually say to me, the money isn't there. Well, of course it isn't there, because we in New York City have had an austerity budget for years, and it is fundamental to crafting each year a new budget. We accept the fact that the wealthy people who live here and benefit from our work do not pay their fair share.
Thank you, Evie. Thank you, Evie. I want to get back to this fellow who wanted to respond to Walter, and then in the back.
Hello, can everyone hear me? Hi, I'm George Olkin. In December, I was elected president of Local 1482 of DC 37. That's the Brooklyn Public Library Guild. And I just was going to say to your question to your point, that in the last two DC 37 delegate meetings, there's been an outburst of anti-immigrant sentiment in the chat during and I, especially when we're talking about housing, because people think, a lot of the members are saying, well, they're giving housing to immigrants and not to us. And I pointed out that I put in the chat, well, shouldn't we fight against the landlords, not the immigrants? And someone said, union members are landlords. That was their response. These are union leaders who see the union should be fighting for landlords. And so I don't know what to say. And so my question, I guess, and my response is, there seems to be, what I see is this confusion. And yesterday I was talking to one of my union members and talking about making a sick bank, a way to share sick leave. And she said, well, but what if someone who doesn't deserve it wants? I only want to give it to people I like. This is a union member. This is another union leader who doesn't want to give her coworker sick time. She's just not well paid. She's not rich. She just doesn't. So there's been a total breakdown of what unions are for among the rank and file. And so, Robert, I love you. You inspire me. But I think, I'm looking to you where it's like, how do we rebuild the rank and file? Like, of course, the leadership is no good. The leadership is rotten. But it's like, I'm trying to make just the day-to-day work. And so I wonder how we make that happen at the rank and file level. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Boy, did you have somebody from the, let's see. Say it again? Oh.
I don't have anything new to tell you except do everything you can. What I've seen in looking at what Moore has done is that they pretty much do the work of the union where the union doesn't show up. At my workplace, for example, as COVID hit us, ended up in a disciplinary meeting because I had the temerity to give masks to people, and I didn't clear with management the source of where I was getting the masks. But that alone helped identify me, at least as a person in my workplace, that people can speak to. One of the issues is that at least with my agency, the workplace is very disjointed. Like the workers who are in the same local as me, I don't really know them. You know, the 16 years on in the city, I'm in my fourth work location. So I don't really know the people at the other location. So one of the things we did was we created a Facebook group where people can communicate with each other. Because as people would tell me, oh, you know, this is happening in my workplace, that's happening in my workplace, I had struggles convincing my union organizer these things were happening because they're like, how do you know it's true? So I got together a Facebook group and I was like, testimonies, please. Tell me about the struggles happening in your workplace. You've had any coworkers who passed from COVID, give me the information. And I was able to confront the union with this and they said, okay, we're gonna go do something. And they did actually start fighting back. But it's also about like building what's missing, which is that connectivity amongst our coworkers, right? So even if it's something as simple as wearing your union colors one day, right? If it's something as simple as your union delegation on site showing up an hour before work and greeting people as they come into the building so they know who you are, like these are the basics that we have to do that's not being done. Like we have all these great ideas, as Carol says, I'm in full agreement that capitalism is the problem, but to convince our coworkers of that, we have to actually get to know them.
That's right.
Okay. Boom, boom.
I think I promised Sean Petty, and we haven't heard from the nurses yet, so I think Sean's ready to say something on Zoom.
Hi, everybody. Sean Petty. I'm a nurse in the New York State Nurses Association in the public hospital system. Yeah, I mean, I'm really thankful for this discussion. I think highlighting and coalescing the lessons of the retiree fight, most importantly, because from my view, it's the single most important blow to the city and to the corrupt labor officialdom that we've seen in decades. And it's an incredibly important, in some ways could be a watershed moment in terms of how we understand the balance of forces in the city with our unions holding us back at most every stage. You know, I think the question that was asked, I think a couple speakers ago, about the mixed consciousness among our brothers and sisters that we work with, the people that we're trying to organize, I think is a huge one. I think there is been some successful inroads that anti-immigrant sentiment has had in the last year, and I think that's a huge question that we have to really consider taking up when we do our organizing, because I think it does hold people back and distract people. But I also just wanted to point to the fact that we did have some struggles, in the last year, where NYSNA's fight to break the pattern in our last contract fight, where we won an 18% increase, where the pattern was 3% for 5 years, is another example of being able to organize campaigns that break really long-standing traditions within the city. So I think there are things that we can look to take inspiration. And I think the retiree has really led the way on that.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Sean. We're going to come back out here. There's a person in the back that I had missed. Yes. I got you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Okay, I'll stand up. I was really struck, Marianne, by your assessment of the unions being weak.
Could you identify yourself?
Oh, yeah. My name is Jihe. Do you want more information?
An organization or anything?
I'm part of the A&I Women Campaign, and we work with CROC in fighting for health and fighting for workers. Hi. And we've also had experiences with unions that haven't been quite ideal. But I was really struck by the sort of like trauma bonding with attrition contracts, and this sort of feeling that for such a long time, our unions have been on the defensive, thinking of themselves as weak, unable to fight back politically. And so I was wondering more if you guys could speak to what you thought of how do we now fight back to build a labor movement that isn't just constricted to fighting for the best we can get from a terrible list of terrible options, fighting, playing defense, but how do we actually build a stronger labor movement that is not going to force us to keep coming back to these same situations? I'll just say, like, I've never been in a union. I've never had the option of being in a union, and I think that's true for most of the workers too. So how do we also unite a labor movement that's not stuck also just, you know, in this I won't swear, but in this nonsense.
I think she addressed it to Marianne.
To anyone.
Anyone, okay. Go ahead.
So I think part of what you need to do is take back your union. If you are in a union, take back your union. You have a struggle in that right now your workers are working 24 hours a day and only getting paid for 13, to my understanding, right? And I was at some of your rallies and I totally understand that. I also had home aides for my mom and I know how hard you work. And I'm EMS and I've also seen that in the real life. So I totally get it. Trust me, I feel for you. In the labor movement, I do believe that the unions are trauma bonded to that. This is what the MLC was for. They were supposed to rally all of the unions together so that all of them could stand in unison, use the leverage of the weight of all of labor against management. There was, back in history, there was an article about how they did this in one bargaining session, that they would not, they made all the unions promise they were not going to pit one against the other. And what the city tries to do is break one off to set that pattern, as speaking to Sean's comment before as well. What you have to do is form that coalition as to not be broken off and set a minimum as what you will accept. So if Bob Lynn and Renee Campion keep calling in union after union and saying, we're going to give you 3, 3, and 2, and you go take a hike, then at some point they're going to have to give you more. And they can't say that they have no money. The mayor started his year in office saying, I am the mayor of City of New York and I have sitting on the highest reserves ever. And he still has the highest reserves ever. And after going through 2 rounds of budget kabuki dancing, all of a sudden all the cuts came back. So this is a ruse. And if you've been around long enough, you're used to seeing this same old kabuki dance, right? Every year, cuts to cultural, cuts to all of it. And then all of a sudden it all comes back. This has got to stop, and that's where that trauma bonding comes back, is that you are conditioned to thinking you have no value, you have to accept the measly pittance that they have to give you. Even Local 372, his counterpart union, has the same thing, where we heard a call where union supervisors are making like 50 cents more than their subordinates, and the union leader literally said to them, well, what did you make 20 years ago? And she said $8 and change. Well, what are you making now? Just about 18. So her raise was equivalent of like 39 cents a year, and she should be grateful for that when the cost of eggs is like $5 a dozen. That is ridiculous. And that's why I keep saying your value is not in a box, and the only way to get that back is you have to take back your leadership. Don't let them stay in power. Get your friends, make a coalition, take back your local. They're trying to take back their retiree chapter. You have to make noise, get another local to say, hey, we're going to, they did that the first year we met them. We went from like City Hall, then we went to DC 37, we went everywhere. Then she's taking me back down to 52 Broadway. This is what you have to do, is use your voice.
Okay, we're going to go to the Zoom, and I know a lot of people, but we've had our chance. Okay, we're going to the Zoom now. Then we'll come back. There's one person there, and then I'll go to Martha. And okay, I'm having a little trouble, and we're running out of time, but I'll do my best. I see Michelle Keller.
Sure. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak here today. This is a great forum, no question about it. I'm a former officer of DC 37's Local 375. Folks who know DC 37 know 375 because we were always caught in some controversial areas where we were trying to use our voice and inspire our members. I'm a district leader up here in Westchester and also the president of the New York City's Coalition of Labor Union Women. Coalitions do count. They really do. Because when otherwise you think you have all the answers, hearing from a number of people that have the issues, but where to go, how to stay focused, what's your organizing model, often that's solidified. And not to forget the community. And I think that that's an issue with the unions too. Unions come out of communities, but they forget about them. I mean, I was an active member. I didn't anticipate all of this, but I'm an active as a retiree. I'm so inspired, really, by Brother Cuffy, a young person. People often say, well, the young people don't care. They come in, they don't know. He is a true inspiration to me. Thank you for your leadership and your hope. Retirees aren't doing anything that they haven't been trained to do. This is training. This is clearly an issue of morality and privatization of service. And 10 minutes ago, I was active, and you couldn't privatize because you lose people and you lose money. But it seems to be okay here. Stay strong, stay connected. Keep asking the pertinent questions in those meetings, because you're organizing internally while we are organizing externally. One other thing, you'll hear people say that we're a rump group. We're not a rump group. You are labor and we are retired labor. But remember, so as our sister is saying, Marianne, remember that the union, you hear this when they bring you in and they want your money. The union is you. Take care of yourselves, and thank you, each and every one of the warriors.
Thank you, Michelle. No, I'm not going to go there until I get some people out there who haven't spoken. Where am I? Okay. Okay, go ahead. I was pointing at you.
My name is.
Don't forget the 2-minute rule.
My name is Mike Brokum, UFT retiree. My name is Mike Brokum, UFT retiree. I want to address something that was said about unions being corrupt. Well, the UFT's election system is designed to maintain the unity in power. There has never been, ever, not once, an election where the existing president served till the end of their term when they were going to retire, when they were planning to retire, and let new members run. They appoint somebody interim acting. They retire 1 year before the term is up. They appoint somebody interim acting, and therefore they have all the resources, the union. So it's impossible for an individual to run against the union. It's very hard. You don't have the resource, you don't have the way to contact people. They have the newspaper, they have programs, they have classes. You can't win. The other thing that makes unions made the leadership accustomed to being in management's side was something called the checkoff. People thought the checkoff was to strengthen a union. No, the author of I forgot his name, but the author of the checkoff designed it to make the unions weaker, because whether you join the union or not in New York State, you paid the dues in the old days. Therefore, the management wanted to please the politicians who made sure that they kept that in motion. They collect the dues for you automatically. So they catered to the management. They're used to that. So that's it. So that has to change.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Go ahead. I see your hand. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I don't know your name. I forget your name, man.
Hi, good evening. Thank you. My name is Aurea Mangual. I am a DC 37 retiree from Local 371, former 375. I first want to thank Marianne for all that she has done for us retirees, not only for the DC 37, but for everybody. And I also want to thank Sarah from CROC and the group, because when we started this, we were there with them. I feel for 371 because I was on the exec board. I was a location delegate, and I know how they work. I was taken off the executive board because I didn't go along with one item after so many years. And they called me and they told me, oh, you retire, so you're not going to be in the exec board anymore. But I could have finished the term. I said, okay, so I'm not going to be in the exec board anymore. Big deal, right? $35 they give you? Oh, they increased it now, right? So then they reprimanded me because I had said that I was not going to support the group that was running, that they put to run against the DC-37 retiree at the time that I retired, and I could not run because you have to be retired a year. So what happened is that went back to Anthony Wells, and he called me. I didn't pick up the call at first because I knew that there was people in the room with him that were gonna listen. This is how you have to work with them. I'm very sure I'm a Gemini, so I have two sides. So anyway, what happened was that I called him 2 hours later, and we had a conversation where he told me that he had heard rumors that I was saying that he was involved in the retiree selection. I said, well, if you have heard rumors, bring the person and we can clear this up. But since you want to know, I'm going to let you know exactly what I said. And I did. What's your local again? 14 what? Libraries? Okay, so the delegates and the exec board is a yes board. If you say no, you can forget about it. The next election, you're out, or they're going to find an excuse to get you out. The only way that you can get involved with other locals is by you organizing one or two, like they say, you call one person, that person calls 5 people, and so on. It's the only way, the 5 by 5, I think is called. And right now, I feel for all DC-37 members, the active members. You know why? Because you don't have a place to meet for the last 5 years. They closed the building, a building that was perfectly built, and they do not have a place to meet. We don't have a place to meet. The retirees don't have a place to meet. They took our social life away. And now they have the nerve, the audacity to take over the retirees of DC-37, the international. And we didn't do anything wrong except for support the NYC Public Retirees Organization by donating a little bit of money.
Excuse me,
So-
I have to interrupt. I appreciate your comments. We just got word that we have about 5 minutes, if that, because there's another event coming in here.
Okay, so I'm gonna cut it now. So we are out of that office, they took over, and you, members, active members, need to support us because we are fighting for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I can't take any more, I can't take any more calls. I apologize to the people who didn't get a shot to speak, but the time is limited, and fortunately, we are many, they are few. But one of the last points I want to make is we do have a basket here, and Lisa's going to take it around. There were costs to putting this on. We had to rent the space, and so if anyone can contribute something to it, please do that.
Can we do something online, the online people?
Boyd is going to put a Venmo in the chat. So if you're online, feel free to contribute $1 or $5 or whatever. And if we cover the cost of renting this space, if there's any surplus, we'll put it to the next forum, which we hope to have in the fall.
That's right. Okay. Thank you. Lisa, don't forget this, but this is for, we understand that this was very crowded, right? This issue is not going to be resolved in one forum. We hope that we're into a movement of 1, 2, 3, many forums. And so if you can help support this, that's great. Our intention is to stay in touch. That's why we took the contact information so that people can get involved at any level with any of the organizations that they choose. But it's clear that there is a need and a desire for significant change. So I want to thank the speakers very much. They were terrific. And I want to thank everybody who participated. Okay, have a great afternoon. Be well. And we'll see you at the next one.
What you said about the national, that's my